Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out to Crossway tonight and to this Brave Marriage Loving from the Strength of Jesus seminar. We are just so grateful because we have Rick and Beverly tonight. And Beverly, I'm going to tell you a little bit about just how I came to know her, and then Chris is going to pray over her, and then she is going to take it away. I was looking for a women's retreat speaker years and years ago, like 15, 16 years ago. And sometimes it's hard to find the women that speak in their little bitty pockets because they're not quite as well known as the men in our group. And so I saw her name on just a lectureship, and I knew she was teaching classes, and I thought, I'm going to find her. And what I found was a marriage seminar. Wasn't even looking for a marriage seminar, and I listened to it, and I thought, well, this is really good. I think I want to learn from her. And I listened to preachers' podcasts at that time when I cleaned houses, and I heard her son speak. He was a guest speaker at a church I didn't normally listen to, and this man, I didn't know they were related at the time. This man is talking about this experience that was very difficult for their family, but he's talking about his mom, and he's talking about her faith. And I thought, man, I hope my boys grow up and talk about my faith the way that he's talking about her faith and the way that it plays out in her life. And this was deep, hard stuff. And this was grief. This was loss of a child. And I thought, okay, now I really, really, really want to sit at her feet. And she came, and it was absolutely stunning. And so to have her come back and talk to us, to help us create a space for us to invest in marriage, to grab onto hope, to learn how to love more through the power of Jesus is just an absolute gift. And so she's going to tell you more about her professional background, but I wanted you to know what I've seen in the kingdom and the way that she has already impacted me and lives. And because that's where it is, that's the fruit. And so she does a lot of blessing in a lot of ways, and I can't wait for you to hear all about it. But um, thank you for coming to learn, and I pray that I'm hoping we will all be vulnerable and humble and really listen to see what the Spirit has to teach us tonight. And so Chris is going to come up and pray over her.
Again, just as Jenny was saying, thanks everyone for being here. I know it's going to be a very worthwhile thing. I know you all are going to enjoy it, and we're all going to grow together. So thanks for investing. If you're single, if you're not married, if you're dating, it's really really good that you came. I can tell you that Allison and I did stuff, children's classes before we had kids, and it really helped us so much. All of us though can learn how to love. And we're going to learn more about that tonight. And let's really encourage other people to come even tomorrow if they're not here tonight. I really think we can all benefit from some great lessons. I'm looking forward. I've heard amazing things about Beverly. Rick is her husband here as well, so he's going to be speaking to us on Sunday. But we're really thankful that you all came, and thank you for everyone being here. Let's have an amazing night tonight. Let's be humble. Let's be vulnerable. Let's be honest, and let's really grow together. So again, thanks. Let's pray together. God, you are an amazing God. This has been an incredible week for us, and just seeing your creation and the power of and the beauty that you make. It's really, really special for us. And thank you for keeping us safe. Thank you so much for bringing Beverly and Rick to us. We pray, God, that you will be with Beverly as she teaches us tonight. Help our hearts to be open. Father, give us your spirit. Help us, Father, to allow ourselves to be truly, deeply honest with who we are before you. Help us to really draw closer to our spouses, to serve them, to love them, to give them our very best. Help us, Father, to be willing to change things in our life that may be difficult for us to change. But, Father, allow us to have the strength, guide us, strengthen us, so that we can be the very best we can be for each other and for you. Help us to learn and understand more the power and the beauty of love. And again, God, we pray that you'll be with Beverly. Guide her, strengthen her. May her spirit lead her in the things that she has to say. And may our ears be open to those things. Thanks again, Father, for this opportunity to be together as brothers and sisters and family in Christ. It's such a joy to be part of your kingdoms. In Jesus' name we pray together. Amen.
Have just anxiously awaited getting to be with you. We thought we were coming to sunny Florida. Y'all tricked us. We planned on staying, we had talked about staying maybe a few extra days and enjoying the sun. And I'm glad we changed our mind because this is how it is in Texas right now, too. So we're very grateful. I couldn't help but, as Jenny was making such a beautiful introduction, thinking of my oldest grandson when he introduced me one time for FCA. He was in 8th grade. His name is Jed. In front of his friends, he said, and today we have my Grammy. She's not an athlete at all. And she likes to talk a lot, so get really comfortable. Well, okay, thank you so much. And the head of FCA was like, that is the worst introduction I ever. I said, it was beautiful. When your grandchild does, it was great. Let's just leave it alone. But what an honor to be with you. I'm glad that Jenny and I don't talk maybe weekly because I think she is that kind of person that I say yes to anytime she asks me to do something. I love Jenny, and I know that you do too. Her servant heart is just, it's a magnet. It's just a magnet to get to be with her. And I love talking about marriage. I was a stay-at-home mom for 12 years. To give you a little professional background, stay-at-home mom for 12 years. Then when Rick decided to go into preaching, we knew we would need more income. So I went back to school towards the end of that 12 years and got a degree in elementary ed. I taught first grade for 11 years. I was a school counselor for one at the end. I was with a school district that required you'd get a master's at the end of 10 or you were terminated. So I got a master's. I got it in marriage and family. Because bottom line is I got tired, and I think you'll hear me with this. I got tired of getting down on the floor beside 6 and 7-year-olds and looking at them in the eye and saying something like, it's going to be okay. And those children knew I was lying, and I knew I was lying. Because for some of those kids, my classroom was the safest place on earth for them. It was not okay when they left my classroom to go home. It was not okay when they left my classroom for this summer to be out for a while. And I thought, I want to get it in marriage and family to help mommies and daddies. I told all my professors, I'm not leaving the classroom. I'm not doing counseling. And then I had to get my degree. I had to do, like student teaching, you have to do a practicum where you sit in a counseling room. And my very first counseling session was a marriage session. And about 23 minutes into that session, this is what I was made to do. I have to do this. And that was 20 years ago. I have a nonprofit counseling office. I Wise County Christian Counseling. I'm the founder and executive director of that. I never envisioned it being bigger than just having one counselor, me. I wasn't even sure if I was going to Decatur. That's where Rick was preaching, but I was doing counseling in Dallas. And there was this very wealthy man that went to church with us, took me to lunch one day and said, I want you to think about coming to Decatur to do counseling. So I'm not sure if I can make a go of it in Decatur because my heart is not to be in private practice. I want to do nonprofit work. I want to work with people that can afford it, but also want to work with people that can't. Because what we know is emotional and relational pain does not know economic boundaries. Do you agree with that? I wanted to be a counselor for all people. And he said, well, if I give you $15,000, would you think about it? I can think for $15,000. I sure can. I can think about it. And so I opened a practice there. I was by myself. It was in June of 6. I was by myself until February 3rd of 2010. And that's an important date in our life story. Because on February 4th, our only daughter, our oldest child, went into the hospital. Jenny was 31. She had been sick. See, I spoke in South Texas that weekend. I'd seen her the night before because it was icing where I lived, not where she lived. She was closer to the airport. Went in to see Jenny. In fact, January 28th is the last time we really got to talk. Hired Miriam on February 3rd. Jenny went in the hospital on February 4th. She'd been diagnosed with the flu. They called to say she was dehydrated. I said, I'm coming. I'll sit with her at the hospital while she gets hydrated. I'm supposed to do 3 marriage events this month by myself. Let me pack a backpack. I'll be there. Rick went with me. We got in the hospital. Rick immediately got our 9-year-old little granddaughter out of the room because of the tear on her face. And I stayed in the room with our son-in-law watching doctors and nurses buzz around Jenny. There was a doctor that took David and I into the hall, our son-in-law and I into the hall, and she put x-rays of Jenny's lungs up, and she said, we've got a 60-40 chance. A 60-40 chance of what? She looked at me with all kindness, but very firm, and she said, "Of life. Your daughter's really sick." Jenny never had the flu, which is what she'd been diagnosed with. This was on Thursday, diagnosed with on Monday. What she had was group A strep, gone without an antibiotic, and it had gone septic. And so we fought for life for 19 days. Her legs were amputated, seizures started. And then on February 22nd, 2010, we stood around Jenny's bed, and our belief system would say the angel swooped in and took Jenny to see the face of Jesus. And we left the hospital to go tell a 9-year-old little girl that her mommy was gone. And I didn't go back in the counseling office for months, not for myself, but really to protect my clients. Because what I wanted to say is something, are you kidding me? You call that a problem? Let me tell you what a problem is. I mean, it's hard to hold space with other people in pain when you're in your own, right? And so I had to figure some things out. I had to do some of my own work. I had to do some very personal work, some hard work, spiritual work, relational work, checking on how I could hold space. But I also became obsessed at that point with children in grief. And I'm telling you this in case anybody has thoughts or questions about this. In 2018, we opened another ministry under Wise County Christian Counseling. Now, at this point, we've grown. I have 15 therapists now and just hired 4 more to come to work with us because our wait list is so long. But we opened another ministry called Jenny's Hope. And it is grief work. We do grief groups for children and for families. Now, the grief that we do with these children is the grief of death. They have a special person, someone special to them that has died. But I want to tell you this, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow. I do not believe that death is the only grief-producing event. Are you with me with that? A lot of times we grow up with stories that are really hard to process, trauma reactions, physical reactions. We have things as adults. Just right now, let's do 5. What's something that produces grief other than death? Who's got something? Divorce. Sexual assault. Job loss. Suicide, yes. Or even suicidal ideation. If you know someone struggling, yes. Anything else? What? Health issues, a diagnosis, yes. Somebody in the back said something? COVID, yes. The whole reaction around, oh my goodness. I did so many grief groups, is what we called them, around COVID. Even, this might sound minuscule to you, this was a big deal then, but the seniors in high school that weren't getting, we did groups around those seniors in high school that weren't getting to do what their big brothers and sisters did. And I ended up doing a group for moms of seniors around COVID. But we've still got long-term COVID effects. Somebody else in the back said something else. Rejection. Yes. Rejection, a breakup, a friend walked away, a parent struggling with relationships. What about your own sin? When you have that kind of awakening of, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? I think all of these can produce grief reactions in us. Now, we've started another ministry at Wise County Christian Counseling. We operate on a sliding scale, just so you know. We work for free all the way up to 175 as our cap. But we started another ministry. We did not start it. It just happened around us. We started getting invited to go into schools. Now we go into schools following the death of a student or a teacher. And holding space with these little children as they are figuring out, what do you do with life's losses? We had one school in our community called Paradise, Texas. Can y'all hear me okay through my southern accent? No, okay. Paradise, Texas is the name of this sweet little community. And they had 4 student deaths, 1st through 3rd grade, in 16 months. It's a really big deal for them, for their teachers, for the parents, for the children. And those children are now in fourth and fifth grade, still having trauma reactions around all of that life loss. In fact, one little boy, through the life loss, came to our comfort rooms one day when we were talking about grief, and he didn't want to talk. And at the end of that time together, one of our counselors asked him, "Do you have anything you want to share?" And he said, "I have one thing I want to say. I don't know who's picking me up at school today. My parents are in court right now, and I don't know where my clothes are going to be when I get home." He did not know if he was going to live with mom or with dad. A lot of life loss that we're stepping into, a lot of grief reactions. So I want you to know, I see those, I hear those. Tonight and tomorrow, what I want to do is just spend some sacred space with you. I sense, I believe whether you feel him or you don't, the Holy Spirit is in this place. He is not dependent on how we feel. He's dependent on us being aware of his presence. And I believe there are things that he has set in front of us for us to do tonight and tomorrow. Things he wants us to do, topics he wants us to explore, maybe healing he wants us to do. And so I've been praying, and I'm going to continue to pray that we keep our hands loose and our hearts open as we explore some hard topics, but we also are going to have fun doing it. And our goal is definitely what the title is, that you will learn maybe about bravery, how to experience love. My goal would be that you will leave with some practical tools, but my goal is also that you will be affirmed in some practical things you're already doing. Going, we're doing this one pretty good. We're doing this one right. Rick and I have been sharing a lot about marriage as I've been writing this retreat. We've been married, how long? 48 years. We were 19 when we got married. And really and truly,
I was a very mature 19.
we both did not have the market on that one. Oh my goodness, have we grown up together. But one of the things that we love, because we're both really stubborn people, is defying the odds. Because all the research says 19-year-old marriages should not, 19-year-olds getting married should not work long term. But we have dug in and we've made it work. We have 3 children. Jenny has a daughter, texted me just a minute ago. She's 24 now. She's married. She's struggled, all caps, just all capital struggle. But she's married with a precious baby, just turned 18 months. Baby Bear is his name, Baby Bear. She just wrote me that today he decided to get down on his all fours and drink out of the dog bowl. But he's just a sweet little precious. We have Josh, Jenny talked about, is a minister in Memphis, Tennessee. They've lived there for 16 years. He and his wife have been married 22 years. Have sons, a junior and a freshman. And then we have Jonathan, who is a firefighter in DFW. Has been a worship pastor. But after his sister died, he moved closer to us. He was in Houston, moved closer to us. And he has a son that's a senior and a daughter that's a junior. So that is our life. Rick and I have worked hard at marriage. It's not been a piece of cake for us. It's a lot easier now than it was early on. And neither one of us, I grew up in and I'm going to call it a healthy family. I'm going to say a very healthy family. But I did not know how to do conflict because my parents had a rule within themselves that they did not do conflict in front of us. So I never saw them do conflict. Therefore, what did I miss? I did not get to see it resolve. So when we had an argument on our honeymoon, I'm like, done. It's getting annulled. I mean, I don't even know how to do this, And then Rick grew up, alcoholic father, bitter mom, and life was an argument. Is that okay for me to? Life was an argument. I remember the second time I went home, we were at the table getting ready to eat, and there was this big argument going on. And I told you I'd never heard people argue before. And so I'm looking around. Rick's mother said I had really big eyes. I was scared, looking around at everybody arguing. And finally, Rick's mother said, "And bow your head and hold hands." Okay. And so we all did that. And then at the end of the prayer, when his father said, "In Jesus' name, amen," it was, "and another thing." And they went back to arguing. And I was like, I've never seen anything like this before, but I knew I wanted to be with him. I mean, I didn't know what it would look like or whatever. I just knew I wanted to be with him. And so as the years unfolded and life took off, marriage was hard for us, but we were committed. We were committed. Maybe part of it is I didn't know what else I would do at the beginning, but we have grown a beautiful thing. Not that we still have trouble, as any two relationships will, and any two people in a relationship will. But there's something sacred about the longevity of marriage. So, something sacred about being together. I do want you to know that I am here to be with you. Rick is here to be with you. So, any thoughts or questions when you're on break, we want to talk to you. If you've got thoughts or questions, please ask me tomorrow. It would be my nightmare to get in the car, to drive away, to get on an airplane Sunday to go home, knowing y'all were going, and what on earth was that woman talking about? I mean, my goal is that God will take my words and make them make sense by the time they reach your ears. I told several of my friends, I had this little bit of a nightmare this week. I woke up one morning kind of in an anxiety. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. I got up, I didn't know what the podium would look like here, but I was at a podium and I looked up at all of you and I'm like, I don't remember one thing I was going to say. And somebody was like, well, get your notes. I'm like, my notes are gone. I don't remember one thing I was going to say, but lucky for you, I do remember, and I do have notes, and I do have some things that I want to share with you. So let's make a few ground rules for the night. I am going to ask that everything you talk about tonight, or that you overhear somebody else, no, not just tonight, tomorrow too, or that you overhear another couple talking about, I am going to ask that you practice confidentiality. I don't want you walking up to anybody at the carrots at the grocery store going, I heard what you and your husband were talking about the other night. And I want you to know I thought he was a real jerk. And you know what I mean? Don't say it's all confidential. Everybody is confidential. We're not going to talk about it. We're going to let everybody do their own work. Tell me you agree with that. We good? Confidentiality. I do not want you, if we ever do a group share, and we will, some. I'm not going to go around the room, nothing like, but if somebody wants to share, I'll ask them to share questions, particularly tomorrow. I do not want you to share anything about your partner that you haven't already privately asked them. Like, I know I just demonstrated that asking Rick after, but he already knew what I was going to say with that. I don't want you to share anything out loud that your partner doesn't know. This is a safe place. We're not going to wound our people. No elbowing your partner when I'm talking. I want you to be very, very focused on self-awareness. I can't tell you how many people have come in my office through the years. Now I do mostly marriage and grief. But come in my office thinking they were bringing me their wife. Here she is. Please fix her. Or bring me the husband. Here he is. Please fix him. And really, it turns out there's things they both can work on. And so I'm afraid when we nudge each other, what happens with that is we lose our own focus of self-awareness because we're putting the attention in our minds on somebody else. With me with that? We want to stay focused, be self-aware. Our goal, I've already told you, is I don't want us, I forget how this goes. I think it's like this. Is that back on right? Can you hear me okay back there? Is that still good? Okay, good. Not only learn new things, but I want you to really become aware of things you're already doing, and you're doing a great job. You're doing right things. I want this to be an affirming time together. So let me get to know you for just a minute. How many of you are not married? Okay. Excellent. I'm super glad you're here. If you're in a relationship, beautiful things to talk about. These are things we do with couples, premarital work, or things we do with friendships. Everything we talk about is just good relationship skills. Good relationship skills. Less than 5 years. Do we have anybody? Okay, good. Awesome. John Gottman would say, if you can make it 6, you got a fighting chance. And I love that. John Gottman does some great marriage work. Less than 20. Okay. A lot less than 20. Less than 50? Whoa, okay. Awesome. Awesome. Good. Okay. If you've got topics that you were hoping I will cover, if you'll tell me at break, I think I've covered everything or close to, I've covered all my important things that I do in sessions. But if you've got an idea, you're going, I really hope you cover this or talk about this, give us some tools on this. Let me know, because I can at least address them where you know that that's what I'm talking about, is your question. Recently, I've been asked, and Jenny and I've talked about this some too. How can we, as church leadership, how can we better protect and nurture marriages in our churches? Because if you can't do it in church, we're on the face of this earth, are you going to do it? You know what I mean? You got to be able to talk about hard things in church. You got to be able to talk about it and have some dialogue about it, and church leaders that are safe to talk about it with. Rick has been a preacher for, how long did you preach? 36, 40 years, a long time. He just retired February 25th. And I cannot tell you how excited I am for Sunday morning. I cannot wait to hear him preach. He's my favorite preacher of all times. And so many of my notes and my learning have come from him. But when we were in church leadership prior to February 25th, I had a lot of couples struggling, asking questions, figuring out, how can we do marriage? How can we do marriage the way the Lord wants us to do marriage? My goal is to not only introduce to you research that I've learned, things that I've learned, but also to give you practical tools to sit with, to be with. We do know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Let's just all get on the same page here. Marriage was God's design. Truth? It was God's idea. It was his design. And I cannot wait. I feel like when we get to heaven, we're going to spend the first few years just watching video of him showing us. Let me tell you what it was like when I created all this stuff. This is what it looked like before I created anything. And then I created Adam. But that wasn't enough. You know, I loved Adam so much. But Adam needed somebody. And one of the things that God has implanted inside of us is a deep desire for connection. That's not an introvert, extrovert. That's all people. God made us to want to connect, because most of all, he made that so we would want to connect with him. But he made us to be connecting people, to show up for each other. And I picture in Genesis, I've heard Rick say this before, I picture when God introduced, I just picture the staircase from heaven. Seems like there was a song about that once. But you know, the staircase from heaven going down, and Eve is just holding on to God's finger. This is just how I picture it. And she's saying, God says, Adam, watch this. Look at this. And here she comes. Here she comes. He said, I present to you. And then Adam, I got this from Rick, full credit. And then as she gets close to the bottom, Adam goes, whoa, man. He likes what he sees. And then we have marriage. But you know what? The rest of the Bible, God didn't do that with us. Now, you may have a story you might think he did. But God doesn't say, you're going to be with you, and you're going to be with you, and you're going to be with you. He lets us pick who we're going to. Well, really and true, let's tell the whole truth. Old and New Testament, nobody got to pick, except mamas and daddies. God didn't say, this is who you're going to pick to marry. He never tells you that. But he says, basically, this isn't really, like, this isn't Greek, but it basically says, but once you're married, this is how you act. Once you're married, this is what you do. So all this stuff about I didn't pick the right person, I go, oh, I don't care. I do not care about that. But this other person, this affair mate, is my soulmate. I do not believe in that. There's never an excuse for that. I don't believe in that. I believe we learn how to behave. Now, let me say this right here, in case there's someone in the room that's been divorced. I believe that sometimes, I heard Amy Grant say this, the Christian singer, and I believe it. I've sat with people in this story where Amy said, I worked a lot harder on my marriage than most of my friends did that are still married. There's times we bust tail and we work hard, and it doesn't work. Divorce is absolutely not, and you better say amen if you agree with this. Divorce is absolutely not the unforgivable sin, right? It's not. We've got to create space in our churches. We've got to hold space with that. But what I'm talking about tonight is people committed to the concept of marriage. And how can we live that out? How can we walk that out? How can we live faithfully in that? Sin, shortly after Adam and Eve were created, sin entered the world through food. And at that point, fear was birthed. And we've been struggling with fear ever since. There's things we get afraid of. Sin entered, fear was birthed. But listen to me clearly. Heaven is coming. Heaven's coming. And so it matters how we walk in the middle. That's what you and I are doing. It matters how we walk this out in the middle. It matters how we do marriage. It matters the decisions we make to protect our marriages. It matters how we model it. It matters how we argue, and it matters how we reconcile. It matters that our children get to see. It matters for generations to come. Because heaven is coming. And what a beautiful thing it is to begin to practice heaven on earth while our feet are walking on dirt. Heaven's coming, but we live in the middle. You have a grief story. Jenny died. Lots of verses that say Jesus conquered death, but people are still dying. Heaven is coming. We live in the middle. In between, it already happened, but not yet. That's where we're living. Fear is going to be real for us, and we've got to talk about it. We've got to know it. We can't bury it anymore. We've got to be able to explore our fear, speak about our fear. Marriage is a gift from the Lord. And it has to be unwrapped. I'm on a hobby right now talking about this. I talk about it everywhere I go. That I believe we've got to begin to unwrap the good gifts that the Lord gives to us. Do you believe, I'm going to give you an illustration. Do you believe the Lord gives us peace? Yes. But I think like you, I don't live every minute of my life in peace. The Holy Spirit indwells me. But I have to discipline my life for peace and for joy. They're gifts from Him. It's like this. I have a granddaughter who is 16, and she loves pretty gifts. She likes pretty things. I mean, this girl at Christmas, she makes a PowerPoint slideshow of what she wants from me, links included. I mean, you scroll through her PowerPoint, you get what she wants, and then like we did Christmas at Thanksgiving, she takes off what I bought and gives her other grandmother the rest of the list. I mean, it's a gorgeous PowerPoint. She works on it a long time. But let's say that this year at Christmas, I handed Jocelyn a beautifully wrapped gift. I mean, it's got gingerbread people on it. That's kind of my thing. It's got glitter ribbon on it. The bow is so beautiful. Rick does all our wrapping, and he went to this class, not really, but I'm pretending, went to this class to learn how to make these gorgeous bows. And the name tag, it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And Jocelyn says, "Oh, Grammy and Grampy, I love this gift. It's so beautiful." And then she sets it by her chair. And it gets to be the end of the holiday, and everybody goes home, and she takes her box home. "Thank you for the gift. I've already written a song about it." And she's singing songs about her gift, and she's even quoting verses about her gift. But I go to their house 3 months later, and the gift didn't open. It's just sitting on her dresser, but she's still talking about it. And she's got more songs about it and more verses about it, and she loves the way it looks and to talk about it. But she hasn't unwrapped the gift. And how many of us are like that with peace? Aren't you desperate for it? and to know joy. I have this sign. Well, it's a wall hanging that one of my friends made for me with a Cricut machine. That is, when I walk out of my office, I go through a family room to the waiting room. But as soon as I open the waiting room door, it says this: grief and joy can hold hands. Yes. They are not opposing emotions. They both hold hands. They both are deeply rooted in love. You're not going to grieve the loss of something you don't love. How powerful to give our hearts to the Lord and to go through the movement of unwrapping the gift of marriage, of peace, and of joy. So for the next few hours, I don't mean hours tonight. I meant, well, we do have a few more hours, but tonight and then tomorrow, I want you to be very aware as we talk about some hard things. I want you to be very aware of your breath. Because particularly tomorrow, maybe in a few minutes, I'm going to talk about some things that can take my breath away. And maybe they will yours too. But I want you to become very aware of your breath. Now, the breathing technique I teach my clients, we learn from Navy SEALs. We learn from military people. And it's called box breathing. It's like this. I'm just going to teach it to you quickly and move back into marriage. But it's you go in for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, you go out for 4 seconds, and you hold it for 4 seconds. Let's do 2 right now just to give you a feel for what it's like. We're going to go in for 4. Here we go. Hold it. Out with noise. And hold it. In. Hold. Out. Hold. When we begin to feel triggered, when we begin to feel angry, when we begin to feel confused, we begin to have a reaction of any kind, go into your breath, go into your box breathing. It just helps your brain be able to think again. Get your brain re-engaged with what you're doing. We need to practice that all the time in marital conversations. Where I'm not fussing at Rick about something that happened when I was 10 years old. I'm with him. I'm present. Now, I do have to tell you this. I had an athlete that I was working with in Dallas one time say, you do 4, I do 20. I hold it for 20. Good for you, dude. You do 20. I do 4. So I'm just saying that to say it doesn't matter the number. The deal is it's just all the same. We're very controlled in our breath pattern. And then for joy, we're going to be doing some of this weekend. The number one way to get joy, this is so simplistic. I'm doing a lot of research right now on joy, but if I was just going to sum it up in one, the thing that links up all the neurotransmitters that lead to the pathway of joy is gratitude. We need to be grateful people. I did this study on gratitude when I was in the depths of grief. I could not think of anything to be grateful for. When the lights go out, it's hard. But through forcing that, unwrapping that gift of joy, I'm grateful that the Lord was with me there. I'm grateful he gave me that verse. I'm grateful he showed up in that moment, that I was aware he showed up in that moment. Again, I want to really stress this. I believe the Lord is with us, whether we feel him or we don't. And I think that's an important thing that we need to say on Sunday mornings when a church is together. I was visiting a church one time, and somebody said, "Come on, church, don't you just feel the presence of the Lord today?" And I was like, "I don't feel him today." So it doesn't matter if I feel him or I don't. The deal is we got to know he is with us, whether we feel him or we don't. He is with you in your marriage work. Whether you feel him or you don't, he is with us. He is with us. I love that. I love that. Pay attention to your body's energy. I am going to ask you, if you think of something, you're like, I really want to talk to my wife about this, or I really want to talk to my husband about this, make a note so that during times we will have some breakout times and it's just the two of you together that you can talk about it then. Don't let it slide under. If the Lord is prompting you to think about that, make a note of that. Go, I need to pay attention to that. I need to pay attention to that. Make notes of things that you want to journal about later. You just want to get in touch with yourself about. You have spent your whole life developing the habits that you're living into today. You spent your whole life developing those. And some of those are good. And some of those we need to learn new habits for, true? And so I believe this is a weekend that it's kind of information. I'm going to be giving you some information, but what I pray the Lord will do is take that information and turn it into transformation. You see, I don't claim to know the mind of the power of darkness, but I don't believe that the power of darkness is concerned about us being in this room tonight. As long as we get in our cars to go home tomorrow afternoon living the same way we've lived, I think then he's won. But when we get together for a time like this to go, what's one or two small things or one or two big things that I want to do differently in my life? How can I show up and love braver? How can I show up and love more like Jesus? More like Jesus loved me. There's no way, and I'm going to say this again tomorrow as we do a conversation about practicing love, but there's no way we would know as human people how to love unless Jesus showed us truth. And knowing that he loved us and not just letting that be in our minds, but really in our hearts and our spirits, knowing about his love is the way we learn to love other people. One of my very favorite quotes of all time. I am a major Brene Brown fan. I know if you've listened to her before, you know she cusses like a sailor, but her work is just too good. It's just too good not to pay attention to. I promise every quote of hers that I do, there will be no bad language in it. I think this work is so powerful. Listen to this quote: love and belonging are the irreducible needs of every man, of every woman, and of every child. It's what we all want. It's what we all want is a place of love and a place to know we belong. Without love and belonging, Dr. Brown says, there is always pain and suffering. But with love and belonging, there is sacred space. Now, I want to really be clear here, because belonging is not the same as busting your tail trying to fit in. It's not the same. When I'm trying to fit in, it's when I'm willing to camouflage pieces of myself to try to make you like me. But when I get the sense I belong with you, you get the real me, which that also means you get the me that has the gifting that God gave me. Love and belonging are what God planted in our hearts to need. And the Lord, Father God, Spirit God, Jesus God, gave us love and belonging. They gave us places to be. The loneliness of disconnection lies at the heart of almost every argument or cold silence. The loneliness of disconnection, fueling our disappointments and resentment, it leads to distance. And what gets in the way? I'm going to go back to the thing we talked about in Genesis, and it's our fears. It's things that we're afraid of that get in the way. By the time we got together and we were young, we were 19, maybe somebody in the room was younger than that, but by the time you meet your partner, we've got backpacks filled with ways we've learned to interpret the world. I was recently with a beautiful young woman, a speaker in faith, a speaker in business. She's a women's minister, also a speaker in community work. And she said, do you know, for years and years and years, I'd never thought I was worthy because of something a junior high boy said to me about the way I look. I'm sure that this boy doesn't remember it at all. But we all have stories. We all have stories. Something your dad said to you flippantly or maybe even on purpose. something your mom said to you flippantly or on purpose, something a sibling said to you, something a teacher said to you, a friend, a boyfriend, maybe even yourself. And we put this in this backpack, and it gets really heavy after a while. But these fears have got to be dealt with and handled for us to live in authenticity, for us to live in vulnerability. Tony Robbins was really a popular speaker, kind of a late night speaker, and he said that all people had two fears. I'm just going to give you a few of the theories on fears. He said all people have two. Number one, Tony says, is, am I loved for who I really am? Meaning, if you really knew me, would you love me? And number two, am I good enough? Now, I believe Jesus has already answered both of those, but very differently. Are you loved for who you are? Yes. He loves you. Nothing we do to earn it, nothing we do for it to go away. He loves you. Yes. But are you good enough? I think it's kind of like this. You know, there's several verses that talk about the eyes of the Lord roaming the earth, looking for those whose heart's given to him. And I picture wherever his eyes goes, his nose goes. And that when the Lord smells you, there's times when the Lord smells us, maybe all the time, without the blood of Jesus. He says, you stink to me. You're not good to me. But Beverly Ross washed in the blood of Jesus, that's good enough. It's through Jesus we become stamped good enough. You do it. You're enough through him. You're not hustling for your worth anymore. You're enough. I love the Max Lucado quote of, you will never do anything that's made God love you less than he does right now. It's the definition of love. You'll never do anything that will make him love you more than he does right now. Not less, not more. His love does not change like people. His love is full. His love is a promise. His love is what he knows how to do. But then, some of my favorite work is done in a little book called How to Improve Your Marriage Without Talking About It. It's Pat Love and Stephen Stosny wrote this book a long time ago. I think it came out in 2007, a long time ago. But in this book, it is so good. It talks about she doesn't do a lot of gender differences, but Pat Love and Stephen Stosny say that there are some gender differences about fears, that you can watch on an active brain scan how human brains light up, and men's brain and women's brains light up differently about fears. Now, I think that we have become, because women are in men's worlds and we're kind of blended more now, that I can see this, that we have a hard time talking about this sometimes. But in my office, when we're presenting this, I've never had anybody that didn't get it. So let's see if you get it. And don't necessarily tonight. I want you to think about it. I'm going to tell you what it looks like on a first grade playground. Then let's see if you get it. On a first grade playground, let's see, which one do I want to do first? Let's do boys first. When a little boy wants to motivate another little boy, they will say something like, bet you can't. Sam's faster than you. And even if it was the last day of school, I never one time had a little boy go, you're right, Sam's faster. Those are always fighting words in the male world. You never know when Sam's going to fall. It's on, because men have a heightened propensity to feel like a failure or inadequate. And more than they feel it, let's see if I can language this right, they don't want you to think it, that they have failed or they are inadequate. Give me feedback. Does that make sense a little bit? Am I saying that the right way? They don't want you to know it. Now, it does not, this is important. It does not matter if you meant to make them feel it or not. Like you can't go, that's not what I meant. No, if they feel it, that's what they feel. Now, on an active brain scan, a male brain, if you're talking trash to him, will light up differently than any other time because it lights up a piece of their brain that brings up shame. It literally can hurt a male brain to think we think they aren't enough, to think that we think they are inadequate. And some women have a gift at doing that because it's what we've seen modeled. but you can't. Sam's faster than you. It's being able to hold space with fear. Now, on a first grade playground for a little girl, they will say something like, I'm not going to be your best friend. It's always done with a little head nod. I'm not going to be your best friend unless you da 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 da. You know what I mean? I'm I'm not going to invite you to my birthday party, even if their birthday party was last week. Little girls will do anything to get invited to next year's party, even if it's 11 months, 3 weeks, and 6 days away. They just want to be. They may not be able to go. They just want to know they're going to be invited to the party. They just want to feel a friend. They want to feel connected. And so the number one fear for women is the fear of isolation, to feel alone, to feel disconnected. I've got a woman at our church I worked with years ago. Her husband had just died. And she said, I will not come into our church until the meet and greet is over. I don't want to stand alone. It's hard to know where you're going to sit if you're alone. It's hard to know the space. But you know what most women report? That the loneliest place on the planet is climbing into bed at night with a man they're disconnected from. It's hard. And so there's this vicious cycle between feeling inadequate, like I wonder if she thinks I'm a failure, versus I'm so alone and I feel isolated. I feel so much disconnection. It's so painful. Men can also feel shame when a woman that they deeply care about is stressed, even when the stress has nothing to do with them. They want to solve it for us. They want to fix it for us. They want us to be better. And so there's some dialogue in there that needs to happen with that. I'm not saying we don't ever feel stressed about that. We just need to be able to do some talking. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow. I heard all this at a marriage conference in Orlando. We were at a beautiful resort. Rick went with me. I think he called it sabbatical. But a sabbatical for a preacher is like study, pray, do whatever they do in the morning, and then golf by afternoon. You with me? And so he was on the golf course when I finished my class. And I said, where are you? And he said, I'm on the course. I'll come pick you up. You want to ride the course? I'd love to. So pick me up. I said, let me tell you about this thing I learned today. And I started talking to him about male shame. And we weren't looking at each other. You know, I was looking ahead. He was looking ahead. I kept checking his face, going, you with me? You kind of getting this? And then I said, I want to invite you. I want you to tell me when I create shame for you. If I say something, I'm not fully getting this concept. And so I give you permission to teach me and to tell me when I do that. Neither one of us can remember what I said next, but I said something. And Rick very kindly said, that kind of shames me. And I went, really? He went, that really thing you do? That really sends me over the edge, because that's like saying that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. I can see that. I can see how that can happen. But it's through dialogue. So one thing we're going to be able to do later is giving each other permission. I want to know. I do not want you as my wife. I never want you to feel alone. I don't want you to feel disconnection. I need you to teach me. Because it's nothing our partner did. It's ways we are interpreting what they did. Give me feedback. Does that make sense? It's not what they did, it's ways we interpret. But if we don't talk about it, we're fighting something that happened years and years ago, and our partner wasn't even involved in it. They have no clue what's going on inside of us. They have no clue tomorrow we're going to talk more and more about what that looks like in relationship and in talking with each other. Does not matter the motivation. We have to give each other permission to share. My favorite phrase is, tell me more about that. I want to know more. Before I get triggered and go, nuh-uh, that is not what I meant. This is what I meant. Da, 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 da. I mean, I can be very direct. And tell me more. I want to know more. Be ready to hear. Be ready to really listen. And I can't remember the last names, Chris and Marcus, a book I'm reading right now on finding joy in marriage. He says, you've got to learn to listen to emotion. It's not as important that we listen to the facts. You got to go under the facts and listen to the emotion. Tell me more of what you mean. Tell me what you're feeling when you say that. See, it's a consequence to original sin. What was it with original sin in Genesis? Men are told, you're going to work the garden by the sweat of your brow, but there will always be weeds. I mean, you're going to bust tail for it to be good. It's never going to be perfect. Women are told, your desire will be for your husband, but he's going to rule over you. Your desire is going to be for perfect relationship, but it's never going to be. It's never going to be all that. Because we cannot expect from our men to get from our men what we are wired to only get from God. We've got to figure that one out to cover those buttons. We got to figure that one out, how we can sit with that a little bit better. You see, I've never called Rick once and said, honey, tonight we need to talk. And he goes, yes, the talk. I love the talk. I can't wait till you get home, babe. Yeah, I'll have drinks ready. I'll have drinks ready for the talk. All of a sudden, it's just silence on the other end. I say, we need to talk. Because what's he thinking? I've either done something I shouldn't have done, or I didn't do something she wanted me to do. Because the talk is bad. You know what I mean? It's bad. Tonight we need to talk. That's not going to light him up. But I might need to connect. It has nothing to do with what he's done. I've had a hard day in the counseling room. I just want to connect. But if I don't say that, do you hear the disconnection that can happen through our talk, through the meetings? I just want to be with you. Brings up shame feelings for him. The possibility alone can be freaky. When in that place of fear, frequently women just want to talk about it. They don't know what they want to say. I just want you to talk to me. And so for the first few years of our marriage, probably even decades, tell you the truth. Rick would just, he'd even go to another room to get away from me. But you see, like my grandson said, I'm a woman with many words. And when I'm upset and I feel disconnected, I have even more words. And so Rick is like, I'm out of here. And I'm like, oh, no. The Lord says not to let the sun go down on your anger. I even quoted chapter and verse at him. So finally I realized it's for me to deal with. It doesn't say reconcile before you go to bed. It's don't deal with your own stuff before you go to bed. Because see, if I go to bed mad, oh boy, we're going to talk more about this tomorrow. But see, if I go to bed mad, I wake up tomorrow what? Madder. It does not work for me to go to bed mad. It does not work for me to go to bed in not a good place with him. Both end up disappointed, disconnected. The way we've laughed about it before, where he's like, I'm not talking. I'm like, talk to me. And here we run around the house doing our thing. Husbands, calm down. Really and true, calm down. Through testosterone, through fighting or flighting, which for a man to flight is typically in today's world, not the caveman's world, but in today's world, it's in a recliner with a remote control. That's how they are. I just need to calm down a minute before we talk. But for a woman to calm down, for a woman to really feel calm, it's going to involve oxytocin for us, which is our attachment hormone. We get oxytocin when we birth a baby, when we breastfeed, when we have orgasm through sex, but also when we have a good conversation with a friend. So you might just want to call a friend, not talk about the problem. We just want to call somebody. We just want to be with somebody. So men, we say fight or flight. Women can do that, but it's not how we calm down best. How a woman calms down best is through tending and befriending. We might want to clean a drawer. We may want to call a friend. You have to do your own work to cover your triggers. It's not like hit me again. Now, we are going to talk more about this tomorrow, but this is just a great place to plant this right here. And then we're going to take a break in just a couple of minutes. Yeah, we're going to take a break in just a couple of minutes. Dr. Brown talks about this, and I think it is so powerful. She says there is a real difference. Now, she is not using shame here like male shame. She's using shame more like we all experience shame, and I believe that too. It's different than what I'm talking about. It's just a different definition. Are you with me with that? Is that good? Okay. She says there's a difference between guilt and shame. We need to know this, and I will talk about this more tomorrow because we need to embed this. Guilt is when I know I did something bad. but there's hope I can do it differently. My opinion is guilt is from the Lord. The only people who don't experience any guilt are sociopaths. But I pray, Lord, nudge me when I say something that doesn't please you. Nudge me when I give a piece of advice or I ask a question. I take somebody down a trail that's not going to be to your glory. Guilt is when I know I did something, but there's hope for repair. But shame is when not only do I believe I did something bad, I believe I am bad. Got a lot of adults that were taught that as children. Shame on you. Shame, shame. We use some harsh language. I knew you would do that again. That's just who you are. Shame. And with shame, why would you try to do it better? Because it's who you are. Why would you try to do that better when it's just who you are? I believe we've got to figure out how to wrestle with Romans 8:1. We can quote it and we even sing it. Therefore, there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Shame does not exist. No. Shame does not have to exist when we're under the blood of Jesus. That is not how he made us. So we've got to figure out what we need to do to quiet our shame so that there's hope. We can do things better. We can live more transformed lives. We can have clearer conversations at home. So tomorrow, when we do communication pieces, and we will, and about our fears, two pieces that I want to say tonight, and that is that we get curious, very curious about our fears. When I feel that twinge of, I think we need to talk, I need to do a real quick assessment in my own mind. Is this something I can handle with prayer? Is this a spiritual issue that's coming up for me? Or do I need to tell Rick I feel so lonely? Now, I want you to listen to this too, because I did not get your approval of this, but I've shared this before in front of you, and I think you're okay with this. So don't act like you're not, okay?
I feel kind of ashamed already.
You feel ashamed already? Okay. It's been a few years ago, but I got home from work. It's when he was still working. He was still preaching. And I got home from work, and he said, when we moved to Decatur, I bought you the house that you wanted. I said, I know you did, and I love our home. He said, I've done things in this house that you wanted us to do. This house is your home. I said, it is. He said, I'm so wondering what's going on because I'm in it all the time by myself. You work long hours. You're gone a lot of weekends. And I was. Now, I want to say this in a way that you get it. And if you need to ask me questions, I want you to understand this. Everything I was doing could have been seen as, and we had a lot of preachers whose families were harmed by this years ago. But I was doing things that I believed were the Lord's work. I was helping a lot of families. I was working really late. During COVID, my goodness, I worked 12-hour days just to get people in. I did not leave my office. It was all on Zoom. It was hard work. And I was gone most weekends doing events like this by myself while Rick was home alone. I'm so grateful that he told me that, because we cannot get caught under the guise of the work that we're doing, even when it's the Lord, if marriage is not nurtured and protected. Give me feedback. Did I say that in a way that makes sense to you? Does it make sense to you? We've got to be really careful that we either do it together or we're able to hold space with that. I'm so grateful he told me that, because I have a lot more fun being with him too. How can we separate that out? How can we separate that out and protect the concept of marriage? So I want you to get curious about your fears, but the other one is one I want you to really write down to practice, and we'll talk more. Maybe not. I think it is a beautiful habit in communication with all people, but particularly in marriage, to assume good. You see, our brain, it's like it's filled with DVD files. And on like files are like emotions. If these things happened, made me feel like this, they're on the same file. My files are by feelings. And when I'm reading off that file, I can use phrases like you never and you always. Those are not true. But when I'm on that file, it feels true. I do not believe, now you might can prove me wrong, but I've never met anybody yet that woke up in the morning going, how can I hurt her today? How can I hurt him today? We believe sometimes when marriages are hard, we believe our partner's aim in life is to make our lives miserable, is to hurt us. But there is a powerful switch in our brains when we assume good. We assume good. We assume that people, all people, are doing the best they know how to do. Now, a pediatrician was asked one time, do you believe your patients' parents are doing the best they know how to do? He worked with a lot of abuse. And he said, I do. She said, tell me more about that. He said, well, I believe hurt people, and I believe abusers have been abused. So I think they were taught that. But he said, bottom line is, I'm just a better me when I assume all people are doing the best they know how to do. I want to be the best version of me. What about you? And so when we show up and we assume that car that just cut you off, they may not have seen you or they may be on the way to the hospital. Let's just assume really good. You know, it doesn't even matter. Doesn't matter. But before we go into that fear mode, we assume that our partners are on our team doing good. Marriage is about protecting your partner. Marriage is about keeping your partner safe. Marriage is about creating space for both of you to be your very best selves. Okay, I've never said this out loud in front of anyone before. I've never even used this in counseling before, but I found this quote. It's not totally, it resonates with me, and I prayed about it, and I feel like I'm supposed to say it. But I get if it makes you feel uncomfortable because it does me too a little bit. But I want to hear what you have to say about it later. And I'm going to say this, and we're going to take a break. This is the definition of love from one Christian writer that I read. Giving someone the ability to crush your heart and trusting them not to. Being so brave. You're willing to give them that ability. You don't have to self-protect. You don't have to hide. You're willing to give them that ability, but you're trusting that they won't. And we'll end there for just a second. Let's see what I've got. 7:42. Why don't we come back in about 7:55? Okay, that's about a 13-minute break. Restrooms, I think you all know better than I do. Snacks are over there, and if you have any thoughts or questions, I'll turn my mic off in case you want to ask me anything. So thanks. Okay. Am I off? Am I off or am I still on? Okay. Rick, give me feedback real quick. Anything?
Did you ever go to Eagan, Minnesota?
I have not. Should I?
River Valley Church?
No.
Up there? Okay.
Should I do that?
I think we've met you somewhere. I think we've been.
We've seen each other?
I think it was a marriage seminar. You ever do like the best, let's see, your wife has your best interest at heart?
No.
Okay. I was hoping that was you.
I've been at some of the Christian colleges. Would that have been doing some marriage work?
I think so. We were just.
Are you a Steelers fan?
I am.
Are you?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
out. But, I keep supporting them because it could be next year.
That you never know. We're Dallas Cowboys. We're not really,
I
but we
know.
kind of feel
I feel
for
you.
30 years we keep going. Well, maybe. You never know.
Not
Yeah.
off of them now. I used to be a huge Cowboys fan.
Is Jerry, you think Jerry's going to turn it around before he goes? You think
No.
He's got no family,
Jerry's
right?
a problem.
The seat, they're passing out papers and passing out pens.
We're going to go ahead and get started. If you could, please make your way back
Oh.
to your seat. Thank you.
Where is it? Oh, right here. Like that? Is that the way it goes? Okay. Thank you, John. All right. Raise your hand if you still need a paper or a pen. Pens here. Okay, while they're continuing to pass out a bit, am I good? Okay. Give me let's do 3 or 4 things that it doesn't have to be anything I said. That's not what I'm looking for, but I'm looking for something that you heard you don't want to forget. So it doesn't have to be anything I said. It could just be something that came up inside of you. You're like, I want to think more about that. So maybe 4 things. If you were going to tell somebody about what's happened the first hour and a half we were together, one thing, what would it be? Assume good. Thank you. Assume good. Yes. Powerful switch. Something else. I'm sorry?
Make
Safe.
space.
Make space. Oh, yeah, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I wear hearing aids, so if I go, what? I really do not hear you, so I really need to tell me what. What else? What? Okay. Unwrap joy. Yes. One more. Grief and joy can hold hands. I think the quote, the way it was originally when I heard it was joy and grief, but I wanted to switch it up so that the J and joy could be capital in the middle of the sentence. So I wanted it to be in the middle to represent Jesus. So grief and joy can hold hands. They most certainly can. You know, I teach, and you may hear this tomorrow. I probably won't say this just like this, but I teach that the brain cannot experience 2 conflicting emotions at the same time. The brain cannot experience anxiety and gratitude together. It can't do it. So I was on the stage with a pastor in Austin one time, and he was interviewing me about this stuff just as COVID was really kicking off. I mean, everybody was in masks. We were talking. I'd been in there with a book release that Josh, our oldest son, and I had written together, Scarred Hope, and he was asking me about that. And then he said, I don't get your quote because you teach that you can't, the brain can't experience 2 conflicting. And I'm like, that's right. And he said, but you say joy and grief, aren't those conflicting? And it's when we talked about what I said to you is that they are both rooted in love. And I think that's so important that we get those are not in conflict. Even when you're in grief, you've got to be able to hold space for glimmers, is what I call them. Glimmers of joy, glimmers of that sweetness of the Lord calling you into his heart. So right now, what you're holding in your hand is a page filled with value words, things that might be your values. A few years ago, I decided I was going to do, Allie Edwards has a program called One Little Word. And I wanted to do one little word versus New Year's resolutions. So what I do, and what a lot of my friends do, is we come up with one word that we want to be our focus, our touch point throughout the year. Rick and I have been so blessed to be able to go to Israel multiple times. And there, you know, they have the Shema statements on the door frames. Now, I don't know what they've done. We've only been once since COVID. I don't know what they've done since COVID, if they still touch it or what. But there's those Shemas that they are touching every time they go in and out of a door. They're touching their statement. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. Remembering their touch point. And this one little word is basically like under the Shema statement, it's a word that I want to use as my touch point through the year. Now, what I do is I go over a page like that and I circle every word that makes me feel curious, every word that I'm like, oh, I could pick that one. Then what I want you to do, or what I want my friends to do, is go back in and find one of those words, maybe 2 or 3, that are like the umbrella. All the other words could go under it. The very first time I did this, my word was brave. Let's talk about that one for just a second. Brave is when you do something you're scared of. It's not brave just to do hard things if they don't make you feel scared. For you to do something that might not be hard for you, but it's hard for me, that doesn't make it brave for you. By definition, brave is when you do something that you're afraid of. Brave is when you do something that's scary. That was the word. I began this process 2 years after Jenny died. In order to get back up, I had to begin to picture the Lord every morning, putting spiritual braces on my knees. Come on, my daughter. We've got work to do. Come on, get up. Put those braces on. Be brave. My definition of brave is the Holy Spirit at work in me. So I want you to look over those. Some of my other words have been, I've done gratitude multiple times. My grandchildren laugh at this one, but one way to make one word, if it's more than one word, is hyphenate it. Do you know what I'm talking about? And so a couple of years ago, my word was show up in the sacred space. They were like, that's one word. It's one word because I've hyphenated it. Show up in the sacred space. I want to show up. I want to notice sacred space, so it should show up in the sacred space, and it's hyphenated. So pick what your word is. I am on a cancer journey. I've had cancer 3 times. I'm in metastatic breast cancer right now. And so my word during chemo and radiation, double mastectomy, all the scary stuff was peaceful warrior. I was at war, but I didn't want to give up my peace because I had to fight for it. It was scary for me. I had to come to terms with some things I'd never come to terms with before. I had to ask myself some questions I'd never asked myself before. Peaceful warrior. This year, my word is create. I want to create margin in my life. I want to create more peaceful moments. I want to create more joy moments. I want to create more memory-making moments. I want to create time for joy, for peace, for laughter. I want to create more scrapbooks. I want to create more pictures, picture walls. I want to create more gifts. So I want you to find 1, 2, or 3 words that are your values. I'll be quiet, let you work on that for a minute, and I want to talk about it. Who needs more time? I'm not rushing. We've got plenty of time, okay? Let me say this just instead of waiting till the very end. Sometimes a value word, when I work with my clients, even when I do it myself too, it's what do you want said about you at your funeral? 1 or 2 words on there, 3, that you're like, I want those. I want my life to mean those. So let's say you circle 20, then go back in and put an asterisk beside 1, 2, or 3 that are your umbrella words. Who needs more time? Okay. I should have done this on PowerPoint. I didn't think about it. How many of you have been to Rome, the Colosseum or something like that? Okay, several of you. I'm going to hold up this picture. This isn't a perfect depiction, but it looks something like this, that there's this arena floor, and then under the arena floor are lots of rooms or cages. It's for the animals, the gladiators, maybe the Christians, criminals were kept. And you never knew when you were in one of the rooms underneath the arena floor, you never knew when your name was going to be called. You're just living life under there. They're giving you food, getting you ready. You're talking with some of the other people, maybe. That's what history tells us. But then when your name got called, you had to walk up some steps that were in some dark places because you knew you were going to the arena floor. And you knew when you got to the arena, there was blood that was going to be shed. Maybe yours. You did not know the outcome. You just knew you were being called to the arena floor. What is it that gets you from the cage or the room under the arena to the light of the floor? Knowing the war, knowing the battle is about to happen. I believe that what gets you to that spot are your values. You're reminding yourself, knowing you're about to leave it all on the line, knowing you might not get another chance at this. I picture the Christians that were being persecuted there, quoting verses, quoting their own spiritual songs, maybe a word of Jesus, getting to the arena floor, not knowing what's about to happen. But we have moments like that too in our lives. You're being called to do something brave, not sure how it's going to end, but maybe that's not even the most important part. Maybe the most important part is how you show up. How do you show up when you're called to love another well? When it's somebody who's hurt you? How do you show up to love another well when it was never demonstrated for you and you're not really sure how to do it? Or maybe it was demonstrated well and it just looked way too easy and all of a sudden it's complicated for you. Marriage gives us all the opportunities to practice all the hard teachings of Jesus. Somebody say truth, but don't say it out loud. I mean, that's hard. You're called to demonstrate what he does. Nobody can ever take your values away from you. And everything we talk about tomorrow is going to be centered on the touch point of your values. What is it? Now, our values, I get they can change. I told you I pick a word or two or three every year, but they're close to the same. They're connected to the same. Sometimes it's not a one little word. Sometimes it is a principle that you don't want to forget, and it's what you want to be known for. I know Jenny's heard me tell this story multiple times. Our daughter struggled, and when I say struggle, I'm talking all caps and in bold, with secondary infertility. We could not have another baby. We did treatments, we did pills, we did procedures that cost the price of a small car. I mean, we did stuff, and it felt like we did it because it was hard. And one day, one of our children, one of the boys said, I tell you what, let's go on a family fast. Everybody agreed to give up something till Jenny either gets pregnant or comes to peace with infertility. We did it. Jenny and David did not know what we were doing it. Everybody gave up something to remember to pray. And then one year at Thanksgiving, Jenny called a family meeting. And again, she did not know we did this. She called a family meeting. We do the every other year rotation. This was my year to have everybody at Thanksgiving. She lived about 30, 45 minutes away from us, so we went to her house for Wednesday night dinner before Thanksgiving. And she pulled out her Bible. I poured through her Bible, and I cannot find what verses she read. But she said, I want you guys to know I've come to peace with my infertility. Now, she did not stay there, but she was there that night for that season. She said, Mom, do you remember when I was a little girl and you taught me to plan my funeral? I do remember that. I taught all three of my children to come up with one, two, or three things you wanted to be known for. You wanted your life to matter while your feet walk on dirt and live into those things. I said, I know that I taught you to plan your funeral. She said, Mom, I don't want people to ever walk by my casket and say, oh, there's that poor infertile woman. She said, I want people to walk by my casket and say, there's a woman who continued to serve and praise the Lord when she didn't get her way. My boys, and Rick actually did, the boys did their sister's funeral. Jonathan led worship for it, and he opened her funeral with those words. And he said, today it's our family. We did not get our way, but we're not going to stop serving and praising the Lord. That's what I'm talking about a value. You see, it mattered. It really did. And I'm not idolizing her or idealizing her, whatever you want to say with that, because she's gone. But for Jenny, it made a difference in the way she chose to live her life based on, I want to go out being known as a woman who praised and served the Lord. It changed the way she did life. And I'm going to be so bold to say, even at 31, it changed the way she did marriage. It changed the way she raised her daughter. But the decision she made. This is a big decision. And I don't think it's one you necessarily have to make tonight, but I think it's one we could play with a little bit tonight. For just a second, does anybody, let's do 7, maybe 12. Let's do a few. Anybody want to share? Because I always learn when people share with me what theirs are. I'm like, oh, I want that one too. So who's got one? You tell us. What's the value? Yes. Okay, hyphenated. I love hyphenation. What is it? Family loyalty. I love that, family loyalty. Yes. Who's got another one? Yes. Faith, integrity, gratitude, honor, and tenacity. Love that. Tenacity. I will fight for those things. Yes, I will not walk away. Even when it's hard, I will be tenacious till the end. Yes. That. Yes. What else? Ah, wholeheartedness and shalom. Jenny, you want to address the difference between peace and shalom? Yes. That's right. It's that depth underneath it. It's not just peaceful activity. It's reason for peace. Yes. Good. Did she do that well? Yes. Yes. I thought so too. Yes. Good. Thank you. I saw another hand, I thought, but I don't remember who. Anybody else got one you'd be willing to share with us? Yes. Allison. Being present. Think about that one. Being present. Yes. Powerful. Yes. Reliability and service. Reliable service. Yes. Love it. Somebody else over here had their hand up. Yes. I'm sorry? Growth. Yes. Making movement. Always in transition. Always making movement. Power. Yes. Anybody else got one burning in you want to share? Yes. Peace. Making the choice. And that one is a choice, isn't it? Because wouldn't you agree, everything outside of us is chaotic? I do not believe we're living in the worst of times. That's not what I'm saying. But I do believe we're living in a chaotic time. Maybe because we have so many ways of hearing about it. Okay? Anybody else? Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Yes. Unshakable faith. Mm. Even if I don't get my way, I'm not walking away. Unshakable faith. Yes. Did I see another hand? I thought I did. Yes? Hope. Hmm. You want to give definition to it? You want to talk about it or no? You don't have to. Yes. Hope for love and for good. Yes. Isn't that what Jesus planted in us is a hope things can be better? A hope of heaven, a hope we're walking right direction. Yes. Thank you. Oh, so good. Somebody else? Yes. Compassion. Yes, compassion. Letting that be your touch point for yourself and for other people. Okay? Okay. Yes? Wow. Authentic, vulnerable presence. And then she ended it with no more running and hiding. It's good. Wow. Yes. Love, gratitude, and legacy. Yep. I love that. Got to be intentional about our legacy, don't we? Mm. Anybody else? Getting up to the arena floor, doing things that are hard with our one little word, our value word. And so, for just a minute, I want you to spend time with this. We've done that, one or two words that express your value. How can you protect that value? Now, what that means is what are some actions, some practical things you can do that protect your values? Something you need to add into your day, something you need to add in maybe hourly, something you need to add into your week that protects that value. Like, let's say the value of gratitude. I keep a gratitude journal. That's one of my values. I want to protect that value. So before I go to bed at night, I want to write 3 things in my gratitude journal that I was grateful for that happened that day. And sometimes I tell people, like my oncology nurse, I'm frequently going, you're going to be in my gratitude journal tonight, because she was so kind to me and locked in with me. This week I saw the oncologist, and she was so kind the way she handled me and spoke surviving over me. And you're in my gratitude journal tonight because those words are so good. And let me say this, not just about surviving on dirt, but surviving well and leaning into even the transition of moving through the doorway to heaven. Power in that. So, would you jot down 2 or 3 things that protect your value? 2 or 3 things you're going to do, just on that paper, down at the bottom and the side, something. 2 or 3 things you're committing. I want to do that to protect those values. And if you're not sure and want to think about it more, just jot the questions down so you can think about it more. I think value work is so important. If it's just not in a good headspace to do it tonight, just jot it down, but commit to do it. The next question is, how do you know when you need to realign? How do you know when you're out of your value? Just example for me, I know I'm out of my real value system when I get busy. I'm just busy. I'm just doing. I'm just busy. I know that I'm out of my value system when I get really snippy. That's a Texas word, maybe, but rude. It would be a word maybe we all would use. Just my mother would say, "You're getting short. You're short with me." Just my answers are very abrupt. That's not my value. I know I need to realign when I hear that in my voice. And then the fourth question, how can your partner help you? Now you need to really think about that because it's not just I want you to tell me. It might be how he or she tells you. It might be a signal that the two of you come up with. Might be a certain candle that's lit. There's lots of ways you can do it, but you're giving them permission to tell you, I think you're out of your values. Sometimes for some of the couples I work with, it's just they've come up with just the question, are you really tired? And it gives us a good time to go, I'm really not tired. I can see why you would think that. It's something you both come up with together. How can your partner, what are you willing to let your partner do that would help you? And then if they do it, you receive it. You're setting it up for success. You're asking them what to do. How can your partner help you? Okay, let's go back to the second question for just a minute. What are some ways that you want to protect your values? Anything you want to share, whole group? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Be aware of that. Yeah. Okay. Good. What else? Protect. Protect those values. Yes. Prayer. Prayer. Yep. Yes. Yes. Right. Just an environment makes it safe to talk about. Is that what you're saying? Okay. I love that. Okay. Yes. And that's not natural. You have to make that happen. I love that. What else to protect? Yes. Set boundaries. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Yes. I'm sorry, say it again. Yes. Yes, Jenny. Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Put it in front of you where you see it all the time. Find a verse that represents it. Put it in your bathroom mirror. Put it different spots around that you're recentering constantly. Protection. Protection. Okay, what about realign? Anything with that? How do you know when you need to realign? I shared with you what mine was. What do you do how do you know when you need to realign? Jenny, what are you saying? Yes. Right. Yeah. Everything feels too much. Easily overwhelmed. Yes. Yes. There's another hand up over. Yes. Yeah. Had a ding, ding, ding. Yeah. Need to realign. I hear you. I hear you. Then when anybody confronted you on it, you get to go, what? What did I do? Yeah, I do that too. Oh, what did I do? Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else realignment? Yes. Okay. Being funky, is that what you said? Yeah. Yeah. Kind of a word. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, and then what do we want to talk about? Yeah, because I'm a nosy girl. I get paid to ask nosy questions. So how can your partner help you? If somebody, maybe 5 people will tell us how they're asking their partner to help them, then the rest of it can go, that's what I want my partner to do too. We can try it on for a while. Everybody gets the right to change their mind. Just because you say it tonight doesn't mean it's the way it's going to be for 5 years. You just get to try it on, and then you can change your mind in 2 hours if you want to. If it doesn't work well, switch it. The deal is it's just got to be something. How can you invite your partner to help you? Isn't that awesome? I love that. Is this a safe time? Yes. Partner helping you. I love that. Way to go, Chris. I love that. What else? Yes? A hug? A hug. That's right. It's true. Cannot. That's right. That's right. I'm going to say this about a hug, and I'll probably say it again tomorrow. But the way that, for the shame and isolation piece, for the way you quiet that, is a front to front hug, no talking, picturing the stress melting into a puddle on the floor. It's not that kind of hug somebody's going, okay, let's get this over with. I mean, it really is a hug. And picturing the stress going away. Yes, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. 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 That's okay. That's an idea. Get in the same shirt. Okay. Yes. Oh, yeah. Hug, physical affection, putting your head on her lap, something still. I love that. Anybody else? Anything else? Yes. Hmm. Thank you for sharing that. That's a good one. That's so good. I love that. Anybody else? Yes. Hmm. That's so powerful. Let me make sure I heard you. Letting you talk so you could comprehend what it is you're feeling. Yes, that's done in safe space. That is so powerful. That's done in safe space with validation. Yes, it's good. Yes, saying I love you. Mm, loved anyway. Loved always. I love that. reminding each other. Yes? Mm. Hmm. There's nothing you can do that'll make me not love you. That is letting the relationship be more important than the problem. We're fighting for the relationship. Good. Yes. Yeah. Think before you speak. Hit a pause button. Good. Good. Anything else? Okay, friends. I think we've covered some hard stuff tonight. What do you think? I think it's been it's just blessed me to be able to look at your faces and into your eyes and be able to see you and be able to experience what the Spirit wants to do. I'm going to give you a little taste of what we're going to do tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about love as a practice, a really brave practice. We're going to talk about safe connections and communication. Sometimes in my office, people come in and the first thing they say is, we're just not communicating. And I want to go, false, you're communicating loud and clear. What you're really saying is you don't like what's being communicated, but we just need to figure out how to communicate a little bit better. Learning to choose and practice forgiveness. Since conflict is going to happen, we will spend some time tomorrow exploring ways to discuss hard things in healthy ways. And the last thing we're going to do is explore intimacy, which will mostly be from a sexual standpoint, but we're not going to do anything, I don't think. It's hard for me to speak to a group this size. Even if you're not married, I think you will get something out of the intimacy piece. I think it is a lifestyle and a culture that we need to live in to protect the sexual relationship, which I think we all can learn from, whether we're married or we're not. I think it would bless you to be here for that, but we'll leave it up to you. 9 o'clock, right? Tomorrow morning, we'll be back. I'm going to sleep fast. I hope you sleep fast. We're going to be back tomorrow morning and ready to explore. We'll do lunch here tomorrow. Is that right? So don't come real hungry. Come a little hungry for breakfast, but not real. Okay. Got it. Right. And then we will end up promptly by 3. I'm saying that to myself. We will end up promptly by 3. Because I do like to talk a lot, so get really comfortable. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But there will be more activities tomorrow. We are going to do more one-on-one and couple. Is it okay for me to pray? Would you pray us out? Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for being here.